Big round of applause for Robert Peru. I really should know better and have something planned before I get up here on stage. I'm the next person. So put your hands together for Ski! But none of the seed ideas that I had in my head actually panned out to become anything useful today. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the cool things. Last week I was here, I did a little bit about home, about the various definitions of home that have followed me throughout life. And one of the things I left out is actually coming up here this next weekend. So more than a lot of other people, I seem to be composed primarily of stories. I don't have a good grasp of chronological history. I can't tell you the year that I did this, or the year that I did that, or the month or the day. I know the month that everyone important to me was born in, and every now and then the year, maybe like my wife's birthday, and that's about it. But everything else gets really fuzzy because they're not stories, and I'm mostly made of stories. When I was 10, 11, my dad and I were looking through a community college, you know, one of those continuing education pamphlets that you get. And in amongst the classes on macrame or introduction to Spanish or guitar, there was a lesson for introduction to Dungeons and Dragons. And my dad was not one of the real participatory kind of father figures. And out of the blue, he's like, why don't we do that? I'm like, yeah. So, the very first time I played Dungeons and Dragons, I did it with my dad. We played for a week. It was a totally forgettable adventure. I had a great time. He stopped coming. I went back the second time. My character was knocked on the head by merchants that we were, I guess, trying to rob. I don't remember. And I showed up every single game afterwards, and all the DM would say is, my guy keeps walking back and forth with the merchant caravan, because they hired me after I woke up, I guess. I got no idea. But from there, I did other things. I found other friends who enjoyed these stories also, who enjoyed making them up, inventing them, playing through these worlds. And since nobody else was willing to, I took the role of Dungeon Master. I create worlds, tie stories together, and it's a giant game of give and take, of improv, of diplomacy, of group management. There's a lot of things that go into being a DM. That go into like watching people, because you have to have believable characters in your games. And if you don't know how other people behave, if you aren't on the watch, if you aren't looking out for the strange people that fill this world, then the worlds in your head are going to be equally two-dimensional. So doing this makes you more aware, but at the same time, kind of makes you step back. You're always an observer, always watching. You interact, but in the way that a DM does, as a way of bringing stories out. Not yours, usually, other people's stories. It is an art of giving with somebody else. Now, I don't remember, of course, the first time I went to a convention. But I do remember, after the Army, coming here to Minnesota, going to Convergence, which is coming on this next weekend. And it had been easily a decade since the last time I had been to a convention. And I don't remember why I stopped. But I remember walking into the convention, and it was just this giant invisible weight that I hadn't realized I was carrying, kind of lifting up off of my shoulders. And it's kind of weird, but it's home. It's interesting to be around people who live stories. Not just kind of like, oh yeah, you know, I was watching that Game of Thrones and that was really cool and everyone's so mean and they kill all my favorite characters. But really lives these stories, takes them inside of them and processes them like, God, I really hated Sansa at the beginning, but Jesus, I hope she turns out to be what I think she could be. These are the kind of people that I go to hang out with at Convergence. Yes, we wear silly costumes and we speak strange and we play board games and play bizarre games with way too many rules. We stay up late drinking too much caffeinated beverages, and we do some pretty odd things. But the gaming community is one of the most open and amazing communities. I've met people who have Asperger's, who have various genetic problems, who have substance abuse problems of one form or another, and just people who are shy. have a hard time interacting. People who maybe didn't get a whole lot of practice being social outside of these safe, wonderful little groups where all they do is make stories together. And that's coming up this weekend. I've been working on a costume. I'm going as a Mad Max kind of bandit, and of course, my kind is completely different from what the fucking movie showed, but I'm still happy with it. I made something. I participated in the stories that mean something to me. And going here this weekend is a total giant nerd flag that I wave pretty proudly, but it's home. Thank you. Next on stage, we're going to bring the amazingly named Mr. Sterling Braun. So put your hands together for Sterling Braun.